This is Gemara in Gittin, Daf Chof Gimel, and we pick it up on the bottom of Chof Beis, Amid Beis, the very bottom at the Mishnah, and teaches the Mishnah who is allowed to write the get, a Mishnah that we've had quoted already prior. Says the Mishnah, Akol Kishirin Lichtev as I get, anyone is kosher, 4 lines on the bottom to write the get, Afilu, the classical, Cheresh, Shaita, Vekatan, a deaf, mute, an imbecile, and a minor. Ha'isha continues the Mishnah part B. A woman can Concise says Gita, write a get, and as well Ha'ish Concise Shaivar, a man can write the receipt. Rashi points out what's going on over here. A woman can write the get and give it to her husband to give to her, and a man can write the receipt that a ksuba was paid and give it to his wife, and she'll give it to him when he pays the ksuba. And now the Mishnah concludes in Kiyama get elu b'chaysamav, that the certification of the get is only with the witnesses. And seemingly this last line is going back on part A, which the Gemara will deal with momentarily. Says the Gemara, how can you tell me a Cheir Sheit Vekatan can write a get v'lav day and they have no das? Who cares if they have das? Says a Rashi on the last line, and therefore they're not going to know how to write it l'shema. Seemingly the Gemara is assuming that an integral ingredient in writing the get, it has to be l'shema, it has to be with intent for the husband and wife. How could that be if he does not have any das? So answers the Gemara, Amar Avuna, what's the way that this is going to work? As we turn over to Chav Gimel Amid Aleph, the way this is going to work is Vushia Gadol Amid Al Gabav. The way that it works is that there is a Gadol, there is an adult that is standing on top of them. So you have this child writing the get, and we have the Gadol, we have the male adult standing on top of them, and telling them that they're writing the get for this man, this woman, this time, etc. Amrli Rav Nachman, it says Rav Nachman, really? It's enough to have a Gadol? Seemingly the Gemara is pointing out that if I have a Gadol, if I have another person standing on top of them, that could create the element of Lishma. Says the Gemara, Amrli Rav Nachman, is that true? Elamiyata, based on what you were saying. Akum v'Yisrael oimer al gabav. If I have a guy writing a get and a yid is standing on top of him, al chanami, basically you said, you just said the kosher. Are you going to tell me that such is going to be kosher? It says the Gemara, maybe yeah. Maybe you'll tell me yeah, no big deal. It's going to be kosher for a guy to write a get if a Yisrael is standing on top of him. V'atanya, but that can't be because we learned in our brayza akud pasel. And Akum is now let her write a get. So what is with this Yisai, this idea that if you have a Gadol Ayman al Gaba v'kamach the get, seemingly is not true? Answers the Gemara, Akum l'daite dinavshei avad. The Akum does it for himself, meaning the fact that the Akum, as Rashi says, is a Gadol, he is a human being with a das. Therefore, even if someone tells him to do it for such and such, la halacha, we don't consider that das. To put this in a very simplistic way, which is not necessarily the easiest lumdus, but just to explain in a way that we can understand, is if you have a katan that has 0 das, so the gadol could input that das and fill it up. But if I have a guy that has das, a gadol can't come and fill it up. Says the Gemara, Akam Natidishay Avad. Continues the Gemara that Hadar Amar Rav Nachman was a chayzer, and says Rav Nachman Lamel Sida Amri. It's not true. We just said to call Pasale La Akam Linyan Hava. Says Rav Nachman, since a guy is puzzled to bring the get, Mechlal, for the fact we have a source, which is the next Mishnah, that a guy cannot bring the get, the obvious implication is that what? He can't bring the get. But could he do something else? It sounds like yeah. Mechlal, the inning ksiva, he's going to be kosher. He can, yes, write the get. So that's a problem, because you just told me he can write it. V'atanya akum paisel. But you don't just learned in the Bryce and akum cannot write the get. So says the Gemara, let me explain what's going on over here. And this is going to be the fundamental idea when you will need lishma in the writing of the get, like the Gemara assumed, and when you will not. Explains the Gemara, Hahi Rav Eliezer hi. That's Rav Eliezer, Damar Eidei Mesira Karti. That what effects, what creates the Gerish in the Mesira, the handing it over, and therefore Ubeinan Ksiva Lishma. Whenever the get is being effected by handing it over, part and parcel with that is that the Ksiva, the writing has to be Lishma. V'avadai akum adai didn't have she'avad, and the akum does it on his own, so it will not work. So says the Gemara, if you need ksiva lishma, then it's going to be a problem. And Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Meir, Afilu Matzav Ashba, when you find the get in the garbage, Chasmai v'nasn lakasher. But Rav Nachman says, Rav Meir disagrees. Rav Meir says there's no such thing as ksiva lishma. You do not have to write the get with intent. Even if you find the get in the garbage, you take it out, but v'chasmu, you sign it, and then v'nasnu la, you give it to her, it's going to be kosher. Why? Because Rav Meir holds eidei chasima karti, not the act of giving it over, and therefore according to Rav Meir, what is the critical ingredient? Not the writing, but the signing of the get. So according to Rav Meir, as long as the signing of the get is going to be for lishma, that's going to be fine. So Rav Nachman. So Rav now asks Rav Nachman, the Kosav law lishma. The Torah says that the get has to be written lishma. Now we're going to have a bunch of series of questions on the sheet of Rav Meir. So again, Rav Meir just taught us a din that the ksiva, the writing of the get, does not have to be lishma. So ask the Gemara, the Torah says v'kasav la, my lav ksivas a get. Obviously, says the Gemara, what does v'kasav mean? Writing the get. And seemingly, what that means, it has to be lishma. Answers the Gemara, loy chasima zaidim. It refers to the signing according to Rav Meir. That's what v'kasav means. Eisei Rava. So Rav now asks a very similar question. Call getchen nichlav shalasham isha. Says in the Brisa, any get that's not written for the woman, pasul is pasul. Again, we see that the writing has to be lishma. Ema explains the Gemara, shenechtam l'shalasham isha pasul. Eisvei, and the Gemara can further. Kshu kaisvai. When you write the get, kilu kaisvai, kshu kaisvai, kilu kaisvai lishma. Says in the Brisa, when it's written, we make it as if it's written lishma. My love, what does that mean? Kshu kaisvai l'tayrif lishma. When you write the main part of the get lishma, then kilu kaisvai l'tayrif lishma. But seemingly, what do we see clearly? We see clearly that both the tayrif and the taifes has to be lishma. Says the Gemara, nothing doing loy. When you sign a lishma, ki'ilu kaisa lishma, we make it as if it was written lishma. So three different questions on Rav Meir, and each one he basically answers. It's referring to the chasima, not the ksiva. Iba Yisem, another teretz, Ani Masnisan, another way of answering of all these mishnayos is very simple. It's not Rav Meir, it's Rav Elazar. Hani Masnisan, Ani Rav Elazar, Damei Demisira Karti, Rav Yudamer Shmuel. And says Rav Yehuda v'shishayir makam ha'teiref, chenem Rav Chagam v'shmeidu lav v'shayir makam ha'teiref. And again, v'Rav Elazar, he, the second way of explaining, I apologize, we're having some highlighting and page issues over here. Again, and who is it? It is Rav Elazar. So we have basically two ways, and these are all the times wherever we're going to try to figure out whether something needs to have a ksiva lishma, whether something needs to have whether it's enough if the chasima is lishma. We're always going to be able to play with these 2 points. Is it Rav Eliezer who holds Eidi Mesira Karti, and therefore there is a din of ksiva lishma, or is it Rav Meir, the Eidi Chasima Karti, and therefore that's going to be enough if that is lishma. Finally, Amar Rava Kano Diacha Koicha Amar Rav Yechon Eino Taira. One more time. What do you mean? Amar Rav Abba Kano Diachas teaches us she'ein koyach lishma ve'Rav Meir he Amar Yidi Chasima Karti. Amar Rav Chana Rav Yechon Rav Elazar he Amarai Ninu Ali with Rav Yechon. It now comes out that Rav Yechon himself, there's 2 different ways of learning Rav Yechon, whether he held like Rav Elazar that you need Eidi Mesira Karti, or whether you held like Rav Meir that Eidi Chasima Karti. And again, the massive difference is going to be if you hold Eidi Chasima, then it's suffice if the Chasima is Lishma. If you hold Eidi Mesira, then the whole Ksiva will have to be Lishma. And we continue with the Mishnah, about halfway down, Chaf Gimel Amid Aleph. Says the Mishnah, Kol Ksheir Navi, I get anyone is kosher to bring the gets. This is really the flip side of the first Mishnah. The first Mishnah we learned was about writing the get. Now the Mishnah continues, anyone is kosher to bring lahavi as a get chotz from who? Cheirei shaita v'katan v'suma v'akum. Kibla Kotan Vigdal. Now what happens if a Kotan accepts the get and then he grows up? Cherish Nisvakeach. Someone who doesn't have das gets das. Suma, someone who's blind, Vinisvateach, and he learns how to see. Shaita Vinishtafe, he was a deaf, an imbecile, and then he had das. Akum Viniskayer, a guy that became a ger. Apostle says the Mishnah, it's no good. Aval, what case is good? Pikech Vinischarish v'chazim Vinisvakeach. He had das, he was smart, and then he became a deaf mute, and then he became smart again. Or, patuach v'nistame v'chazim v'nitzbatech, shavim v'nishtate v'chazim v'nishtafeh. In all of these cases, kosher. Zeh klal, what is the rule? Kosher tchilasai v'soifai b'das, kosher. You have both the beginning and the end has to be b'das. Not enough to have das at the beginning, nor is it enough to have das at the end. You need to have das both at the beginning and end of the process, and then it will be kosher. Says the Gemara, 2 lines from the white lines, Chav Gimel Aleph. I apologize that both the highlighting and the video is not working, but at least I hope that the Torah is coming out clear. Says the Gemara, I understand they don't have das. Akom nami agoy as well teru. Is not part of the parsha, not part of Gerushin. Elasuma my loy. Says the Gemara, what is the problem with someone who's blind? He's a Yid. He knows about Gerushin. He's within the rules of Gerushin. So why can't he be the one to bring the get? Amar Rav Sheishes, Lafi, a practical problem, says Rav Sheishes. He does not know. He does not know who he's taking it from and who he is giving it to. Maskla Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, 1 second. You're telling me that a Suma has a problem. Asuma has a problem. He doesn't know who's accepting the get from, nor who is he giving it to. Asks Rav Yosef that the Brisa teaches us, hey, Suma mutter be'ishtai. How is a blind person allowed to stay married? How does he know the woman's his wife? Hey, how is a man mutter to his wife when it's pitch black? Ella b'taviyas eina. You know how he's mutter? Because he recognizes her, the what? The kala, her voice. He might not be able to see his wife, but at least he knows what she sounds like. She says the Gemara, so why can't the blind person bring the get? He'll be able to recognize the woman via what? Via her voice. So why are you telling me that a blind man cannot bring the get? Ella Amar Rav Yosef, 4 lines into the white lines. It says Rav Yosef, you forgot Daf Beis. What are we dealing with? We're dealing with Chutz La'aretz, the boy lemeimar, b'fanei nechtav, b'fanei nechtam, v'lomati lemeimar. He has to say that this get was signed and written in front of me, and that he cannot do because he cannot see. Amar le Abaye, says Abaye lemeatav, what you're saying is accurate. Patuach v'nistame, if he was able to see and then he became blind, demati Amar. In that case, he is able to say b'fanei nechtav because he was able to see when he accepted the get. Hachinami de kasher. Are you going to tell me that that case is going to be okay? But it can't be. Because what did the Mishnah teach us? That if he could see, he became blind, and then he could see again, it's kosher. That only if he's able to see afterwards, but if not, not. Answers the Gemara, really the case is, even if afterwards he cannot see. So why did the Mishnah say that? The classical. In the case of the Shaita, the Mishnah said, time of the Chazvin Ishtafa, that only works because he got his das afterwards. In that case, it would not work. Tanenami, here it said also, so Limar is concluding that the blind person, the issue is the Bafanei Nechtav. And if Lamaisa, you'll be able to see originally, even if he subsequently cannot see, it'll work, so you'll be able to say Bafanei Nechtav in such a scenario. Amar Ravashi, 3 lines to the bottom, Dekanami, he says, I'll bring you a raya, Dekatani. What did the Mishnah say? What's the next word? Bidas. They have to have knowledge, kosher. V'loy Katani did not say Kol Shetchilasai v'Soifai be Kashros. Shema Mina, a raya that the blind man, if he was able to see in the beginning, even if he can't subsequently see afterwards, it's still going to be kosher. The Gemara continues, 2 lines from the bottom of Chav Gimel and Aleph. Ba'i minei mirav Ami. They asked from Ami the following question: Eved, a servant, Ma'u sheyaseh shliach lekabel get isha miyad bayla. Can he become a shliach to accept the get from the husband? Amar lahu. So Rav Ami responds with the kavasle akum, from the fact that we said that an akum is possible in the Mishnah, as Rashi speaks out, from bringing the get, and the Mishnah only spoke about an akum, but the Mishnah did not speak about an eved michlal. What's the implication? That the Mishnah is teaching us that there's an issue with a guy being the one to bring the get. But michlal, eved kosher. It seems that an eved is yes kosher to bring the get. That was Rav Ami's response, that an eved could indeed be the one to bring the get. Continues the Gemara on the top of Chav Gimel and Beis. Amar Ravasi says, Ravasi Amar Rav Yechanan, Eino Even as a Shlei Kabel Get Isha Miyad Baila. He says, no, it's not true. An Eved cannot be the one to accept the get from the husband. Why not? Because Eved is not included in the parsha of Gittin u Kedushin. Says the Gemara, so seemingly we have a machlokes. Rav Ami said an Eved could yes be the one to bring the get, and Rav Asi says no. Continues the Gemara, 3 lines down, Chav Gimel Beis, 4 lines down, Maskif La, Rav Elazar, Taima de Milsa de Lessa. Says Rav Elazar, the following seems to be the case. Taima, the reason is, B'Milsa de Lessa, because this is something that the Eved is not involved in, he's not in the parsha. Ha b'milsa de Isa, says Rav Elazar, something that the Eved is indeed in the parsha, kosher. It would seem in such a case, the Eved could get involved. But asks the Gemara, v'akom v'akot, he did not b'tayras truma d'nafshayu. And Akum Akusi really is within the parsha, is within the categorization and the discussion of truma. How do I know that Tanan the Mishnah says Akum Akusi Tarma Mishalem Truma say truma? If they give truma, Lamaisa works. And yet, Tanan Akum Tarma Yisa Avil Brishas in Truma say truma. Even though an Akum is in the parsha of truma, they still can act and give truma for the Yisrael. Ma'itayim Olam Yisham Dechsev Atem Gamatem Ma'atem Yisrael Avshu Chacham Yisrael. So seemingly the same thing should be by us, that it's not just because they're not betayras. Seemingly, as the Gemara on Rav Asi, the Eved, either way should not be able to bring the get. Answers the Gemara, Amri Dvei Rav Yanai, so Rav Yanai teaches, Loi, Ma'atem b'nei bris, Av shluchachem b'nei bris, which of course means that an Eved is a ben bris, and therefore an Eved theoretically would be able to be the one to bring the get, if not for the issue that they're lav be tayras. Amar Rav Chiya bar Rava, Amar Rav Yechanan, Ein Eved nasajel likabel get ishim yad baila. He paskins an Eved cannot be the one. Shena b'teres get to the kedushin. V'avavish shenin, even though we learned, if someone says Arei shivcha v'ladim and chayrin, someone says, here is your shivcha, and your children should go free. Emaisa obra, if she is pregnant, zaschalai. She acquires the children, they go free. Maya Maisa Ovra Zaschalai. So Kiyasar of Shmuel Bar Yehuda Rav Yechanan Tarti Amar Nir and Devarin Shavin Mekabel Gela Chavera Miyad Rabbi Shel Chavera Avloi Miyad Rabbi Shaloi. But now, let's say someone's going to ask you this kasha of Im Nashcha Adam Laimer Loi Halacha Shnuya Maisa Obra Zaschalai. What do you mean? We know that if you are free, the Aved, the Obar does go free. Amar Lo Shnei Kol Hagdar Pirshus Davar. There are 2 Gedalim that explain the matter. Who are these Gedalim? Rav Zeir, Rav Shmuel Bar Rav Yitzchak, Chad Amar Ramani Rebbe, and the Amar Amishar Chati Aved Kana v'Chana Mar Ma'itayim the Rebbe. Ba'Hakasav Ober Yachimoyhu v'Nasa Kimi Sheikin Allah Echamei Varel. So 2 different reasons why Lemaisa the Eved would acquire the child as a free person, either because when you're Mishacher Chatzi Avda and we're considering that the Uber is the Chatzi would go free, or because Uber is considered a limb of the mother. We wrap up today's shir with the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, even a woman who's not believed to say that her husband died is Lamaisa believed to bring a get. Who are these people? All the women that la'alacha are assumed to hate this woman that they're testifying about, the mother-in-law, the daughter of the mother-in-law, a co-wife, a yavam on a waiting yibam, basbaila, the daughter of the husband, a stepdaughter. All these people are assumed not to dislike the woman who we're trying to testify about. So even though these people are not neman to say meis baila, but they are neman to bring the get. Ma ben gelami. So what's the difference? Says the Gemara, sheksav moichiach, cause the words prove it. When it comes to testifying about death, there's no tangible item, there's no piece of paper. Over here we have a get. Isha atzma v'yes gittin v'vachi tzrich loimer v'nechla concludes the Mishnah. The woman could really bring the get herself as long as what? She could say b'fanei nechtam. We'll begin the Gemara in the next year, discussing more about these women that are not neman to say that the husband died, but are indeed neman to testify about the gerushin.